Welcome back to the Value Driven Investor Podcast, where we forge value-driven investors on a mission to live life on their terms. No matter where you have come from or where you are going, becoming a value-driven investor is in all our best interests, because becoming financially free allows us to focus on what matters most, fulfilling our purpose. Our community of value-driven investors is committed to showing you the way. With the support of this community, you are sure to reach your goals. For all of us in the value-driven investor community, there is no greater gift than the gift of giving, because together, anything is possible. Today, we are going to be talking about something that I think most people have not heard of. And from what I could discern today on the internet, most people don't even have a clue what it truly is. And that's called microflipping. Microflipping. Have you heard it? Because you might not have. Yeah. But you know what? That's okay, because it is something that I think is relatively new. It is a strategy that Bob and I are big believers in. And today I want you guys to get the introduction on microflipping, because it's that important. And you know what? We just got done talking about short-term rentals. We talked about designing for the experience. We had my designer on, Annie, to talk about interior design and how to look at a house and how to bring value to the house from the perspective of an interior designer. This all perfectly melts into microflipping, because if you listen to all those different strategies, it's all about creating emotion in the property. And that's what microflipping is all about. If you truly want to make a profit in microflipping, you got to buy it right. And then you need to be in and out as quick as possible and add as much emotional attachment in that property, which is aesthetic updates, as possible, and then sell it fast and get out of there. So here we go. Microflipping. The strategy goes hand in hand with house hacking philosophy, because microflipping can be done as an investor like myself or Robert, or it can be done if you purchase a home and you want to house hack it, and Bob will go into that a little bit later. But what is microflipping? Now, again, I went on the internet today, and if you read different definitions of what microflipping is compared to what I'm about to tell you, you might not agree with me. But I'm going to tell you this. I don't agree with them. And I don't think Robert agrees with them. No. But here's what our definition of microflipping is. It's when you find a property, purchase that property, do quick, budget-friendly, limited risk improvements, then sell it as fast as you can. This needs to be done within 30 days or less. That would be the perfect scenario. And the sale price needs to be aggressive. And then when I say aggressive, it's aggressive because you're only looking for a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, maybe a $20,000 return or profit. If you use the microflipping strategy, it's about speed. That's why it's microflipping. You're going in and you're buying something, you're putting limited amount of dollars into it, you're putting a limited amount of time into it, and you're gonna make a smaller, more limited profit. You're in and out, you're quick. Why do you like to do microflipping? Why microflip? Because you want to reduce your risk. That is the number one reason why you're gonna do microflipping. Now, what is the key to microflipping? The key to microflipping is buying the property right. Just before we started shooting this podcast episode, I Googled microflipping, like I was telling you guys. It was so funny because I saw all these different explanations about microflipping. For example, on Quicken Loans, on their website, they had an explanation which would be very similar to what I would define as a wholesaler, not a microflipper. All that tells me is that the person that actually wrote that article has probably never done a microflip, and they might not even be a real estate investor. That's all the more reason why you need to be careful where you get your information and who you get your information from. Because Robert and I, we do this every single day. We don't just come on this podcast and talk about something we don't know about. I've been living investing for 17 years. And Robert's been living real estate for the last 12 plus. So you have to find out, where am I getting this information from? Because there's so much information out there that's junk. And that Quicken Loan article on microflipping is junk, because basically he explained what a wholesaler is. What we're explaining, in our opinion, is what microflipping is all about. So microflipping seems like it's simple, but it's not. And I've seen how complicated it can be because I'm observing it in real time. The Zillow group, Open Door, they're purchasing properties in my market. We just received word, I think it was this week, that Zillow is putting the brakes on. Sure, they say it's because of the trades, or they say they don't have enough labor to turn the projects quickly enough. But in reality, what they're really telling you is, man, we overpaid. Man, we need to hold on to these properties. Man, we're not doing this right. And so, yeah, it might be true that they don't have enough labor, but I can also tell you that they are overpaying, just like Open Door. And it must be nice to have billions of dollars. It must be nice to have someone else's money instead of your own. Right. Because therein lies the problem. The iBuyer are overpaying because they are making emotional decisions, not well thought out, logical decisions. It's all about what you buy the property at, not what you sell the property at. Because when you buy the property right, you leave yourself lots of room for strategic improvement, allowing you to maximize equity fast, like in a microflip. Robert and I have used microflipping strategies forever because it's a fundamental value proposition we execute for our real estate clients, the people we help sell homes. Anyone can do this. That's the best part. But like anyone can get the real estate license, not everyone can do it in a way that will maximize results and deliver good returns on your investment. Why? Because not everyone has the experience of being a real estate investor like Robert and myself. For 17 years, I have been buying my own properties, fixing them up, selling them for a profit. It's safe to say I have learned a thing or two. Real estate agents who don't invest like Robert and I will never know the finer details and how to execute a profit when they're microflipping. Hell, they might not even know what a microflip is, just like that guy on Quicken Loans.
Yeah.
So what does this mean for you? Get started microflipping on your own personal residence, on your own property. Just like with short-term rentals, the best place to learn how to microflip a home is with your own personal residence, your own properties. Way back in episode number 5, we talked with Robert's wife, Shelly. She told us the story about how she got started investing in real estate. Grant, would you consider the house hack that Shelly did as a microflip?
Yeah, 100% I would consider that a microflip. That's the person that alluded me to. There's something different in the world of flipping. You know, there's somebody doing something different. It's not the same across the board, you know. And even my start in real estate wasn't a full-fledged flipper. I was more of a micro flipper, skim coating things and getting things back out on the street as fast as possible, 30 days or less. And I actually was just sitting here as we were talking about, dreaming about those days when we could get skim coat deals and be crushing it with that inside of 30 days and turning as fast as possible. Now I was telling my brother, I feel like every project lasts, 4 to 6 months, 12 months. And I'm like, this is a long road,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's exactly how, looking back, that's exactly how I got started. That's exactly how Shelly got started. And it's definitely a great thing to get started. The one thing I clarify though, nobody shoots out to make $5,000 of profit. You don't go out there going thinking, I want to make $5,000 of profit. I've got a microflip deal that I would consider a microflip that we just completed would be a 100K profit, which is amazing.
Wait for a second though, Grando. I think that Zillow and Open Door would be just happy with a $5,000 profit.
I think they would. I agree with you 100%. They would probably be like, hey, we made $5,000. That's great. And the reason why they're cool with that $5,000 is other services they can provide, right? Other things that they can control. So they have a bigger window to make more money in different areas. I go, but I could never honestly tell somebody go out and try to micro flip and make 5Gs. Your minimum profit on that you should try to shoot for is the 20, 25 and upwards to 100.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you 100%.
So.
And I think though, like I want to define micro flipping, and I would say that if you want to define micro flipping, I think that the iBuyer is the best definition for the micro flip, because they're not doing what you and I do, and they're trying to get in and out as quick as humanly possible, but they're starting to realize it's not as easy as they thought. So, but I do want you to tell us about the microflip that you just hit a home run on, because it's a great story.
Yeah. So that project. So my brother locked this deal up on a house for $350,000, and we were finally like, oh my God, it's one of the micro flips that we can do. I mean, we don't necessarily just say, oh God, a micro flip, that's kind of the term placed on that category broadly. We call it, a skim coat that we can go in and just clean everything up on the surface level. So that one was just one that we just picked up, and we just got off a project, that we'd spent a long time on, probably like 3 months on. And we made, we're actually closing it now. So we'll make probably like, $80,000 on this project, that we spent 3 to 4 months on. Well, this one we go in, and it was just over 30 days. So we missed that window because we had a couple of delays, but it was just over 30 days to get this whole project done. We bought it for $350. We put it on the market at $570. And we felt like that was actually a really good price. So part of it, comes down to that purchase. When you get a really great purchase on a home that you can just skim coat, you've got that window. But we knew we could spend a little bit more on the interior fixtures. We could clean it up a little bit better. We could tile the showers on this one. We could do that type of extra work because we had the window built into it. We ended up spending $80,000 on the house. We wanted to spend 60, but like everything, materials and everything are going up right now. So and that's one of the things we've been dealing with. And so it's like we ended up spending 80, which wasn't, a huge deal because we still had a huge profit window. So it's pending right now, and we'll close next month, and we'll make over 100K profit on it. I think, when I just back myself out quickly, it looks like it's to be about 130, but I'm not adding interest and I'm not adding real estate fees. So I say just over 100K we'll walk away with.
Well, so
I was just thinking,
how the heck is that a micro flip though? If you spent $80,000, like how do you define that as a micro flip? Just a big house.
So it doesn't matter. Like you could do 1,000 square foot house, right? And you might spend 30,000 on it because you're only touching the surfaces. So like a micro flip, like when you're going through, we didn't tear down a single wall in the house. We didn't cut into a single piece of drywall into the house unless it were to patch it, right? Maybe patch a ceiling light, all that micro stuff that you would do. We weren't doing anything structural. We didn't rewire the house. We didn't do any like significant electrical work to the house. We didn't do anything to the plumbing besides actually switching out the shower valves and shower skins to put in, the new shower that was going in. So we didn't have to get into the bones of it. We didn't have to get into the roots of it. We didn't have to get crazy with it. We didn't do insulation, all those crazy things that go into, those big renovations that we love to talk about.
So it wasn't structural. There's no structural improvements.
No.
There's no major overhauls. This is just basically aesthetic improvements.
Exactly. It's just taking something that's old. Like I think this house was built in the 70s, and those are my favorite micro flips because they got good electrical and typically good plumbing. Those ones in the 70s, you go through and you just resurface them all the way throughout, and it gives them that modern look, and boom. There is one thing that I would do and still consider it a micro flip, that wall between the kitchen and the living room.
Yeah.
There's one wall. That's the one wall that I would, if I could, take it down to get like a bar or an island in there.
Yep.
And I would still, like, we've done that multiple times in houses that we would still consider micro flips. That's the one exception to the rule. But when I'm talking structural, that's the least amount of structural it is. And a lot of times that wall's like non-structural anyway, so you could just get rid of it, Because back then people like to compartmentalize things. So that's truly like, I think, what a micro flip is. And what I love about it so much is that's how looking back, that's how I got started way back in 2002. When I went into a house, I didn't go buy a brand new house that was already looked perfect. I went and bought a house. It was 1975, and I cleaned it up and redid all the surfaces, and then I sold it, and I made a great profit. And that's kind of like that sweat equity, kind of home ownership program that you hear of like a lot of people do over the years so they can just keep growing their house to the next level. And that's where I think a lot of people start getting.
Well, that's where Shelly started, in episode number 5, right?
Yeah, that's exactly where she started. And she was doing it at like an extreme level, man. She was like going back and she was buying these houses. And I would be like, gosh, I don't know, and she'd buy it, clean it up. And she's like, I know, I'm going to create this amazing environment, make it look amazing. I'm going to stage it all out. And she would do that. And not spend a truckload of money on them, probably less than this 80K. I bet she'd spend $50,000 on these things. And she turned them inside of 6 months, turned them so fast to the point where the mortgage broker she was using was like, look, you got to start keeping things for like 6 months at minimum, like otherwise, he goes, I don't think I can like keep doing these loans for you. And I was like, she goes, oh, I don't know what to do. I go, all you have to do is go to a different mortgage lender.
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly.
She was like, really? I go, yeah, just go to a different one if you want to do it. And then I was like, I shouldn't have said that because that sped up the process even more. But that was just her figuring that process out, and using her skills and her team that she had built and, her design knowledge,
Yeah,
which
and
is pretty cool.
I'm gonna talk about a property that I have. It's actually on the market right now, and I would consider it a micro flip for sure because I'm only about 33,000 into it, which is one of the smallest amounts of money I've been into a property in a very long time. And I bought it because another agent had brought the deal to me and said, hey, this family's in a particular situation and they really want to get out and they have another house identified and they don't want to work with Zillow. They don't want to work with Open Door. I told them about you. Would you be willing to, or could you look into this and see if you can help out? And I was like, for sure. And so I did. And I said, hey, here's what I can do. Here's the price I can buy it at. And they said, you know what? Thank you so much. Yes, we'll make it happen. Okay, great. And it was just like Robert said, it was built in, I think, the early 90s, and it just needed a refresh. And that's what the microflip is all about. It's like a refresh. And so we went in there and boom, I was done. I was in and out of there in less than 3 weeks, cleaned it up, everything. Now, where did I screw up on the strategy? Because I made a mistake. And you know what? That's part of doing these things, because when you go from like these big infill development projects that I'm doing that take a year or longer, and you have hundreds of thousands of dollars into these projects, and they are just like super encompassing of like just, you're building new construction, you're all into this design, and you have this team of interior designers and contractors and all this crap. What happens is you come back here and you do a micro flip and you're like overthinking everything. Like I'm overthinking everything, and I'm like going, man, I still want to make 70 grand. Well, bud, you can't always make 70 grand or more on a deal. Like you have to sometimes look at it and say, maybe doing it quicker is going to add just as much profit as maybe the 70 grand that you're hoping for, which we all deal with sellers, right? I'm now a victim of my own philosophy, which is when I'm going in and I'm working with a seller to help them sell their house, I'm like, hey, don't think your house is worth, or you have this amount of equity in your house. Your house is worth what the market will sell, the market will pay for it. That's market value by definition. The house is worth what the market will pay for it. So just because you think you have $100,000 or $70,000 in equity in that house, Mr. Murphy, doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you have, because if the market won't pay the price, then you don't have it. So don't count your chickens before they're hatched. And that's what I've done, is I've counted my chickens before they're hatched. The market has also shifted, it's softened a little bit. And if I would have just really said, okay, you're doing the micro hacking strategy here, dude. You're doing the micro flipping strategy. And I would have just been like, boom, I'm going to make $20,000 or $25,000. I'm going to get in and out, and I would have priced it accordingly. I would have probably sold it a lot quicker within like weeks. And I would have probably potentially gotten multiple offers and maybe gotten more than I thought. But no, I was like every other seller that we deal with. If you're a real estate agent out there, I thought I had more equity than I did. I thought the market would bear the price that I expected it to bear. I got emotional. I went after a big number, and now I'm sitting here 30 days on market going, dude, I know what you just did. You just made a mistake. You didn't do the micro flip, and you did what every seller does that you deal with on a regular basis. You gave yourself money that you didn't really have. And so
you became your own worst enemy.
Grando, I mean, you're laughing because you know exactly how that goes.
I'm just walking through my brain listening to that going, God, that's so true.
Yeah. I should have called Bob, and I should have been like, you know what, Rob, you gotta answer, or you gotta list my house for me, because I'm just about to make that typical seller mistake right now.
Everybody does that though. It's like some psychological thing where you perceive value that's not there. I've done it, my brother's done it. We've all done it on projects, and it's all been recently.
Especially your personal residences too, right?
Yeah. Oh God, if you live there, tack on an extra zero. like you're just as bad as every, and then it's like you're a real estate agent's worst enemy, like when you're like that. And, it's just expectations and reality. And I think that's such a good point. A house is worth what, the market is willing to pay for it and what people decide. And they know, because they're watching everything. People that want to buy a house are watching everything, and they know value. But they also can see that extra value too, and things. So if you'd have priced it just right, or just slightly under, which is a great strategy, you would have probably gotten over, because they go, oh man, it would get them through that door and boom. But I've done it recently too. We've done it twice actually in the last, year. So, and actually even one of our brokers, she overpriced a listing the same way, kind of got caught up in the emotion of the property, and it went a little higher, agreed to a higher price, and and now it's just back it down to the market.
Yeah. Well, and I would say too, though, that the market had some influence in that, because the market was so smoking hot. It's still pretty good. I mean, it's better than, it's warm. It's not smoking hot. It's warm though. I mean, there's plenty of houses they're still selling with, 1 or 2 offers instead of like 6 or 12 or 15 offers.
Yeah.
And I got caught up in that, and that's emotional decision making, and you have to be self-aware. You're always going to make emotional decisions, or you're going to have emotion in your decisions, but the less that you let the emotion come in, the better, because it will pay dividends. Because usually, like Robert just said, usually you want to list it just a little bit under what the market's telling you the value is, and then boom, they'll come in with multiple offers, and they'll price up the house. And that's 90% of the time, that's what I do. On this one though, I was like, this is a micro flip. Let me see how I can make this work. And I got all caught up in it. But Robert, I really want to,
let me show you.
Yeah. But what I would really want to do is, like, if you're a real estate agent out there, on this introduction to microflipping, on top of microflipping as a strategy, as an investor, or as a house hack, Robert and I, in our businesses as real estate, Robert's a real estate broker, I'm a real estate agent. Microflipping is one of the fundamental strategies that can help you differentiate your real estate sales business from everybody else. Now, you might be like, what?
Yep.
What are you talking about? Okay, guys, listen closely. If you're out there and you're a real estate agent right now and you're battling against the iBuyer, you're battling against Opendoor, you're battling against Zillow, you're battling against wholesalers, you're battling against for sale by owner, because everybody thinks all they have to do is put a sign in their yard and they can sell it, because you know what, there's a million buyers out there. If you're battling against all these threats to your commission, you have to ask yourself, how do I differentiate myself? How am I different than the next agent? Because you know what? Most of us real estate agents, we aren't very different. You know what? I can tell you this, we're not created equal, because it's definitely an 80-20 rule. There's 80% of the real estate agents, they don't even know how to do real estate. They don't even know how to read a contract. They don't even know how to represent a client. 80% of the agents out there. Robert, would you agree?
100%.
100%. So that means 20% of the agents actually know how to just do real estate services. But now all of a sudden you put a whole nother layer of differentiation on there, like Robert and I have in our businesses. And you're able to say, I am different from the other agents because I am rehabbing and improving properties with my own money, and I can show you the profits that I make. So when I walk in your door and I say, hey, this is what my team and I can do for you. This is what my stager can do for you. My designer can do for you. My contractors can do for you. Oh, and by the way, it's super hard to find contractors right now. Have you tried? Yeah, nobody calls me back. Okay, well, don't worry about that because we already have that in the bag because we have a full team. And oh, by the way, how many agents have really brought in a designer that are going to talk to you about how we can use our micro flipping strategy to maximize your return on investment? Oh, not one? Yeah, exactly. Because now you're not part of the 20% that's part of the 80%. You are actually part of the 1%. Because there's 1% of agents in my market, and I guarantee in Robert's market, that has anything close to the differentiation and the true value that we bring to our sellers and our buyers in this market. So this episode I'm passionate about, because if you're a real estate agent out there, you need to figure out how to execute micro flipping, whether it's on your personal residence as a house hack or whether it's on an investment property that you're going to go out and buy. Because the second that you're able to execute and become a value-driven investor that can now represent buyers and sellers, particularly sellers, and then you can execute the micro flipping strategy for your sellers, this is fundamental in how you truly maximize a seller's return on investment when they go and sell a property on the open market. Grando, give them your sense of this strategy as a real estate professional.
Yeah, I mean, we do that in our business. It's one of the things that why our agent on our brokerage, she loves going out and be able to say, we can help you do these things to your house. And that is 100% differentiator. I'd say you might be part of the 0.001% that can actually accomplish that. And, you know, when I would go into houses and tell people, I'd be like, hey, if I could get you $5,000 more for your house and you only had to spend $500, would you do it? $500 to make $5,000, net $4,500. Who would say no to that? And then even if they couldn't do it, sometimes I'd be like, well, I'm just going to do it anyways. How about that? You know, I'll pay for it and take it out of escrow. There's so many different options you can do, you know, as a real estate agent. But when you have that resource kit, it's like instead of having like one tool in your toolbox, you just got a ratchet set with, you know, 500 different heads to it that you can figure out what you're going to do. And as an agent, it's such a great place to start learning and start getting, you know, your investment career going by just helping homeowners do those little tiny things. And it's amazing.
Now, here's the difference though, people. Like, don't read it in a book. Don't search it on the internet. Don't Google it on YouTube. And why do I say that? Because, yeah, you can come up with all these suggestions, but you really don't know cause and effect. Because you've never lived through it. You really don't know what the market can bear. You don't know what the material costs are. You don't know what the labor costs are. You don't know a lot of different things because you've never done it. So again, what would the 80% do? The 80% would just fake it. Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. I'll pretend that I have that differentiation. And that's great.
Yeah.
And you can do that. But you know what? That's going to kill your relationship. It's going to kill your reputation. And you won't last long. Now, if you actually go out and execute, like Robert and myself, and you actually learn what microflipping is, and you're in the mix, and you're living it like we are, you are bringing so much value that this is what the agent of the future is all about. This is what iBuyer, Open Door, and Redfin, I don't care who you are. You cannot compete with me because you do not have the full stack like I do with contractors, designers. I understand everything on the material cost side. I understand the labor cost side. I understand how the market responds to this color, this product, that product. I understand everything because I'm living it every single day and I'm doing it. You can't beat that, you guys. You can't beat the proof. And that's why Robert and I are crushing it right now. And that's why the 80% are going to fade away. The 20% are going to stick around because they're survivors. And the 1%, we're going to crush it because you can't compete with us. And so that's how important this episode is. That's how important learning microflipping is. And that's what the value-driven investor is all about. Grando, you want to take us out on this, man? Because at the end of the day, microflipping real estate for your clients as a real estate agent, that is the true agent of the future.
100%. I agree. I couldn't agree anymore. If you're in the real estate business and you're a real estate agent, you should be doing that process right there. And you should learn how to do it well, and then keep progressing from there to become an investor, as well as people working with sweat equity on their own home. You should be doing it too.
All right, buddy. That was an awesome episode. I'm excited. We're going to go a little bit deeper into microflipping probably in the next part 1 here, and just kind of go into like different strategies. What are the different things that I should be paying attention to? What's the most important thing that I should do when I'm just doing a light overhaul, when I'm doing an aesthetic update? Again, you wouldn't know this. You could read about it. That's great. But you wouldn't know this unless you're doing it, because Robert and I have made the mistakes. We've lived through it. So we know, okay, Robert, you know, what's the first thing you would do? If you only had $5,000, what's the first thing you would do?
Yeah.
And then what if you only had $2,000? What's the first thing you would do? And I guarantee in 30 seconds, in 2 seconds, he has an answer. And as I increase his budget, he will literally expand his list incrementally, but it will have a purpose behind every single decision. And he could probably sit here and talk to you about each individual purpose and why for about 20 minutes. Why? Because he has a story behind every single choice, because he's done it. And that's what that's what the value-driven investor is about, you guys. It's about execution. It's about doing it. And so wait for our next episode on microflipping when we talk about the list, what to pay attention to when you're trying to do a microflip. Thanks for listening to the Value Driven Investor Podcast, where we lead by giving. For more information about our community and what's new, visit valuedriveninvestor.com.
The Value Driven Investor Podcast was produced by Digital Legend Media in Minneapolis. Build your legend. DigitalLegendMedia.com.